Okay, let's talk about this 2022 tax filing season. What's up? I'm Elena, Financialdemics. I talk about all things personal finance, especially when it comes to the foundations, because I want you to be able to build a strong foundation so you can continue to build wealth. And sometimes I talk a little bit about taxes because taxes is my thing. So let's talk about this 2022 tax filing season. So even though it is 2023, okay, it's January 2023 as of the recording of this video, you are now filing taxes for 2022. And some things have changed. A lot of people did not realize that with the beginning of 2022, a lot of those pandemic era tax credits have expired. So let's talk about a few things that you need to keep in mind when you file your taxes. So because these pandemic era tax credits have expired, do not look for your taxes to look like the last 2 years. Last year, taxes was quite interesting. And I'm saying this as a person who actually filed taxes for people. It was interesting. And even in 2021, when we were filing for 2020, it was quite interesting. And so we're rolling all the way back to what it looked like when you filed your 2019 taxes. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you to think about. It is going to change. It's not going to look like those refunds, them last year refunds. They're not the same. So don't even look for those this year. So the first thing that you want to think about, especially if you have children, is the child tax credit. The child tax credit has changed. So first of all, it's no longer refundable. Previously for 2020, 2021, it was actually refundable. So basically what that means is, let's say that you owed at the time of the tax credit when you were putting it in. Let's say that you had a tax liability of $1,000, but then you actually ended up getting the tax credit, and I'm just using rough numbers here, and the tax credit for you may have been $2,000. You were going to get a refund of $1,000. That doesn't exist anymore. We're back to where it only will take you back down to zero. So if you had a tax liability of $1,000, you put in your tax credit, even if it is $2,000, you're just going to go to zero. Okay, so looking back at the numbers, and I have a couple notes here because your girl can't remember everything. Back in 2021, per dependent, you could get up to $3,600 per dependent. Now we are back at $2,000 for 2022 per dependent. And remember, as I mentioned just a second ago, it's no longer refundable. So that is one of the changes that has occurred now that, we're supposedly getting back to normal. Another thing that has changed is the earned income tax credit. So with earned income credit, previously, people enjoyed it even pre-pandemic, but now it's changed even more. So with no dependent, just as an example, with no dependent in 2021, earned income credit was $1,500 with no dependent. I'm not going to go into all the other numbers because it goes up to 3 dependents, but just know it was $1,500. We have now rolled back to the pre-pandemic levels, so like 2019. So now it's only $500 credit if you don't have any dependents, okay? So that's going to look a little different depending on how much money you make. And remember, earned income credit is based on your income. That normally changes every year. And even though there has been an adjustment because they adjust for inflation, it's still not going to look like what you would expect from last year. And then also the child and dependent care credit has changed also. So this is a credit that you receive because you're paying for care for either your children or if you have other dependents in your home and you have to pay for care for them. So that has changed. So in 2021, the max was $8,000 per child or dependent. Now that max is $2,100. And now let's talk about these charitable contributions. So I've already seen in a tax return I've looked at, and then some questions that have been asked of me, that the charitable contributions has changed, and we knew it was going to change, but a lot of people didn't really understand the effects that could have for them. Now, one of the great things is that they allowed for single filers to get actual credit for, or a deduction for, charitable contribution. Well, that is now gone. We're back again to the 2019 levels. And so previously you could only, and actually currently for 2022, you can only get the charitable deduction if you itemize your taxes. And so to itemize, you have to have a certain level of deductions. And when you typically file your taxes, whether you do it yourself or you go to a professional, it will literally say like, okay, for your situation, it's best that you either file standard, which is the standard deduction, or you itemize. In the pandemic era, no matter if you had standard deductions or not, you could still write off $300 if you were single, or if you were a joint filer, you could write off $600 for charitable contributions. And charitable contributions also include tithe and offering. I don't know if y'all know that, but I'm just saying, if you donate into the church, make sure you keep a track, make sure you get that receipt from the church, because you can write that off. But now we're back to the original rule behind that. And so you only can itemize to write off your charitable contributions. So the levels is different depending on how you file. I'll actually just, pop up something right here with the numbers. And remember, this is as of the recording of this video. So this video was recorded, I don't even know what day it is. Let me see, which is sad. This video was recorded January 29th, 2023. Okay, so as of the recording of this video, these are the numbers for 2022 as far as standard deductions and itemized deductions where you will fall. Okay, and another thing that you should think about that affects you differently in 2022 is the mortgage premium insurance deduction. So private mortgage insurance normally is an additional payment that you have to make when you have a mortgage if you do not put 20% down when you purchase a home. So it's an extra fee that you have to pay, and it's basically because the mortgage company wants a little bit of assurance that they're going to get their money. So you typically have to put that extra money towards it until you get to where you have paid down 20% of your mortgage. So during the pandemic, all of those premiums that you pay monthly for private mortgage insurance was actually deductible on your taxes. Well, they have rolled that back too, and that amount is no longer deductible. So in researching recently, because the home I owned never had private mortgage insurance, and it was something that I kind of like focused at the time when I was looking for a mortgage, on companies that will allow you, or mortgage companies that would allow you to put down less than 20% without charging private mortgage insurance. But things have changed. I mean, I bought my home before the Great Recession. And so now when I look at homes and we look at mortgage offers, typically around where I live, I will say, it's typically about an extra $400 a month. So you no longer can deduct that. And that was probably very helpful to a lot of people during the pandemic, to be able to deduct that amount that they were paying for PMI. So let's talk about some positive changes that have come through, because we kind of talked about things about rolling things back, and I'm sure you're like, man, that's messed up or whatever. But let's talk about some good things that happened in 2022 when it comes to your taxes. So the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law during 2022. And there has been some great things about it. So if you actually own a home, you do have the residential clean energy credit. So previously, you would be able to subtract about 26% of your installation costs for like any solar heating or solar panels or any other type of solar products that you put in your home. But that has now gone up to 30%. And I have not personally looked into purchasing solar panels or anything, but I do have a few clients who have, and to get 30% of those, up to 30% of those installation costs, because it's not cheap to install. Also, they changed it where it's just not for your principal residence. So previously it was just for your principal residence. So wherever you actually lived is where you can get that tax credit. But for somebody, let's say like me, I own a rental home. I own a rental property. So if I put solar panels on that rental property, then I'm also able to take advantage of this credit. And if you have like a vacation home or anything like that, you're also able to do it that way. Also, I know it was like a big thing at the end of, I want to say at the end of 2021, because they were talking about how all these third-party networks like Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, what else do we have? We have so many different ways that you can send money, but that if you were using it for business and it was more than $600 that had come in the account, that you were going to get a 1099K and you were going to have to report it on your taxes. Now, before that change, the number was originally 20,000, which is why a lot of business owners didn't receive that previously. But the number has been lowered. But they needed more time to get everything in order. So that implementation of that rule has actually been delayed. So since it's been delayed, that threshold is still 20,000. And if you receive one in the mail, because some businesses were ready to implement the process, because the government was a little late on it. I think it was like December or late November that they said, oh, we're not ready. So some of those companies had already made sure that they were able to do it. So you still may receive a 1099K. If you do receive a 1099K, please talk to whoever is preparing your taxes, or do research if you do your own taxes on how to report that. I'm not going to tell you how to report that because I'm not your tax accountant. So make sure you do some research or talk to whoever prepares your taxes about it. They'll be able to tell you exactly what you need to do with that 1099K. But just know that they have delayed the $600 threshold for another year. So this year, 2023, okay, when you're filing taxes for 2023, you're definitely gonna have to report the 1099K if you receive one. So the tax deadline is normally April 15th every year. Because April 15th is on a Saturday, tax deadline is actually April 18th, because April 17th is a holiday in Washington, D.C. And because of some storms that have come through California, Georgia, and Alabama, if you live in those states, you actually have until May 15th to file your federal taxes. And I'm pretty sure your state taxes also. If you are wondering about your state taxes, then you probably need to check with your state. Every state is typically April 15th. And so they're probably adjusting to April 18th. But then also, if there was something that has happened like storms or hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that, then they may adjust the date. So you need to check with your state to see what date they are using for the state tax due date. So if you are still watching and you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button. Go ahead and subscribe, because you know you want to subscribe. Just go ahead, come on and enjoy this family over here. We're talking all about money. And if you are looking for ways to legally reduce your taxes, I talk about a few ways in this video right here. So go ahead and watch this video next, and I'll see you next time.